Let's have trial by combat.
Capitol Police unable to hold them back. Others smashing through windows at the Capitol. There were so many chaotic moments, the tense interactions with Capitol Police overwhelmed. Members of Congress and their staffs rushing for cover. Reporters told not to reveal their whereabouts. This image tonight of a man walking through Statuary Hall carrying a Confederate flag. Another startling image from inside the office of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Some trying to breach the House chamber, armed security barricading the door, keeping them out. Behind them, members were taking shelter, some of them on the floor, some told to grab their gas masks to protect against tear gas. In an empty Senate chamber, this Trump supporter at the front of the chamber declaring Donald Trump won that election. The march.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Moose Club. As you can see in that initial snippet there that you just watched, there are uncertain times, crazy times. Things aren't as great in America as we would like them to be. We were going to post this next clip on the back end of the video, but Joe and I kind of talked about it, and it's one of our favorite shows, and we thought it was topical to the state of the Republican Party as it exists today. So we hope that you guys will enjoy it on the front end and then enjoy the rest of our episode. We appreciate you guys for watching, and please enjoy.
During Tea Party rallies and campaign speeches, we've been told that America was founded as a Christian nation, and that if the Founding Fathers were here today, they'd tell us so. Here's John Adams in the Treaty of Tripoli. As the government of the United States is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion. And here's Thomas Jefferson, that our civil rights have no dependence on our religious opinions. And here's the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. What's more frightening than the perversion of our great history is that sensible, smart, strong Republicans, the very men and women who should be standing up to radical fundamentalism, are so frightened of losing primary battles to religious zealots that they've thrown in the towel on sanity. So we get this.
Yes, that the Constitution established the United States of America as a Christian nation.
It's ironic because the biggest enemy of the phony Republican isn't Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. It's this man. He said, heal the sick, feed the hungry, care for the weakest among us, and always pray in private.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Moose Club. Chaos today. We're recording this on January 6th, Wednesday. This is just a few hours after a bunch of protesters at the what was the name of the rally? The Save America rally or something like that for President Trump, when a bunch of the protesters marched to the Capitol and, ostensibly, took over the Capitol building for a period of, a few hours. I think somebody said that this hasn't happened since like the War of 1812 or with the British. I don't know. It's just, this is what happens in like if this happened in a country of like Belarus or something, we would be like, wow, there's like a coup going on in their government right now. And it's happening at the U.S. Capitol building, or happened at the U.S. Capitol building today. I'll make sure to include some of the clips of some of the crazier things. But at one point, they were just breached the security perimeter of the Capitol building, and then they got inside the Capitol, and then they were attempting to get inside the Senate and House chambers, and then eventually succeeded. I think there's a picture of somebody sitting in like the speaker's chair, like in the House chamber, and then there's another person sitting at Pelosi's desk in her office, like just absolute chaos. This was largely sparked by Trump, of course, and his rhetoric since the election leading up to today, when he, essentially told people to go to the Capitol because that, we're not going to stand for this and we're not going to take this. Just crazy. What was your guys' kind of reaction to, all of this happening today? Bork, what'd you think?
I mean, when I heard like the context of some of the things that he was saying at the rally that he had held and then left, it seemed to time up pretty well with Pence taking over his ceremonial duties of, just going through certifying the electoral votes and whatnot. And the fact that he essentially said that Mike Pence is being very weak right now and only being strong is going to save America and we need to fight, more or less, given how today's events turned out, I mean, it's tough not to say that he just didn't directly incite a kind of an armed takeover of the Congress. Now, like what their end goal in that whole endeavor was, I don't exactly know. I mean, I think we've all pretty much seen the photo of the guy with the zip ties. So, I mean, that seems to indicate a certain level of planning, that this was always a possibility that I'm going to need zip ties for something. What that is, I mean,
What do you use zip ties for? Like,
right, like
the hostage. They're planning to take hostages.
well, yeah, I mean, and that's what saying that like Trump necessarily incited something like this. So it's like, well, maybe there's a certain element of this thing that has been planned even before that rally, which wouldn't surprise me in the certain bit either. But just what we saw today, it's just obviously enough people, I think most everybody has said that this was absolutely terrible. I mean, and then internationally, we just look like, banana republic gets thrown around, but like, I don't know, failed state. That's a word that comes to mind when I see something like that happen in the developed world. Just an armed takeover of a legislative house is kind of beyond the pale.
yeah, and what you mentioned, this, some of this could have been planned before, which, I mean, yeah, I think that's probably true. But you got to think those people certainly feel emboldened when, the president's up there on, addressing this nationally televised, with this speech and is saying all these crazy things. You mentioned too, with Pence's, his ceremonial duties, with regards to certifying the electoral vote. So several times in Trump's speech today, he was saying things like, if the vice president does the right thing, if Pence does the right thing, implying like he can overturn the election, which he has just been giving all of these disillusioned supporters of his this idea that the election can be overturned and that the vice president can do it. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but right before, like in the middle of Trump's speech, right before Pence started the ceremony, the proceedings, he released a statement saying, given the law and the Constitution, like I can't do that. Like not only that, but he said like it would be wrong to do, and it would be like it would subvert everything that our ideals stand for. Blah 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 blah. So I give Pence credit for that. But like all of the, so then I was watching Fox at the time. They were interviewing a lot of these protesters after they went to the Capitol, and they actually thought that Pence was going to like overturn the election, and then that like they were actually pissed that Pence decided to do this. Like that's how disillusioned these people were, thinking that number one, that could happen, and number two, that it would happen. Like, so I think that kind of played a part into it. So like, yeah, while Trump didn't explicitly say you need to go do this and break into the building and blah 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 blah, like he was just putting gasoline on the fire. So like, I mean, certainly bears responsibility for this.
100%. Yeah,
it's
100% agree. Yeah,
Joe, what was your reaction to all this?
I mean, I'm even taking notes as like you guys were talking, just thinking about.
Nice hat, by the way.
Yeah, go DC, buddy. One of sayings that I've actually came to like take to heart that you say a lot is, what was the logical conclusion of these political events? You look throughout the summer with coronavirus, with multiple state houses being bombarded by armed protesters. This hasn't just happened, today. Like, they took over the Michigan Capitol. I think I think some southern state, I think it was Kentucky or something, they took over the Capitol. The Texas abortion law, I think a couple of years ago, they took over the Capitol while they were voting. Trump not disavowing the planned kidnappings of Governor Whitmer. You just look at all these events that have happened recently, and like you can just see how this fomented to like what happened today. And just, we talked about this before coming on when we were just talking, like, if a bunch of freaking rejects can do this, like, what does that say to the state of our country and the safety of, not just government, but like the whole country, if like these rejects dressed up in face paint and Viking hats, who were dumb enough to trespass and like bombard a federal building armed.
But it's not.
If they do that, saying that they're that stupid and not have like any sort of repercussion, like, I think this is only going to get worse. Like, January 20th, I would not be doing an inauguration. Closed door, swear me in, let's just get this over with.
Well, Joe, it's not trespassing because it's the people's house. Do you know how many people were interviewed today that said that? Like, okay,
yeah, it is.
Sure.
It is people's house, but you can't just.
It's so ridiculous. And
it's like saying you own a stock of Walmart, so you're just gonna fucking barge into Walmart with a fucking weapon and zip ties. Yeah. Like, no, are you fucking stupid?
It's insanity. And
I mean, even Mitch McConnell, just like a 10-minute prerequisite of the whole event. Mitch McConnell was on the Senate floor just saying, like, if we do this, you guys do not know what you're sowing. Like, this is going to cause serious problems.
Yeah, I mean, leave it to Mitch McConnell to be the voice of reason with Republicans. That's how bad it's gotten. Bork, you said something the other night in one of our other episodes that I think is even more applicable today. You made some comment regarding the certification of the electoral process and stuff. When you said, like, there's nothing less conservative, whatever that means, than, trying to overthrow a free and fair election, blah, 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 the government, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean,
elections held by state, the federal government. Yep. Overturning elections held by state. Yeah.
You can apply that statement to, the Law and Order Party, the Constitution part, like, they just like siege the Capitol building, and now you're seeing, like, I've heard a lot of Republicans today. Adam Kinzinger has been a really good one, and he's always kind of pushed back on Trump when he does these crazy things. But you're seeing a lot of conservatives that were kind of in lockstep with Trump for the last 4 years that are now all of a sudden trying to find that exit ramp on, I gotta detach myself from this guy because he's crazy. And like, it's not that easy. Like Kevin McCarthy, you can't now try and, seem like the reasonable, responsible adult in the room when you've been, since the election, you've been stoking these conspiracy theories about, the election integrity and all this shit. So like, but you're going to see a lot of backpedaling, and it'll be, Joe mentioned it before we came on, it'll be really interesting to see what, the Ted Cruz's and Josh Hawley's do now. Whether they still object to this. Trump, I just saw something on CNN here on my iPad that Trump still wants Republicans to object to Biden's electoral college victory. I don't know. It's like, this is the shit you see in like third world. Like, it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. I don't know if we're really heading into two uncharted territories. I mean, if I were to guess, now that the Capitol has been cleared out, we will proceed with the certification of Joe Biden's electoral win. And I'm sure that it'll be drug out as long as possible. Just based on that not both parties, but the GOP seems to have people on both sides of the House that'll just object to everything at this point.
Well, so before we came on, I was listening to CNN, and supposedly they're like truncating the objections. So they're not gonna have the full 2 hours. They're gonna, if they still do them or not, they're gonna kind of shorten everything to try and.
Okay. Then that is pretty much, the last. I don't even know. You drag that out as long as possible, but it's just literally delaying the inevitable till inauguration day, when we know what happens at that point. Biden goes in there, or the sergeant. If it really comes to that, the sergeant at arms will take President Trump out of the White House to Marine One, and that'll go to Mar-a-Lago, I'm assuming.
But see, that's the thing though, is like, will that happen? Like, you know what I mean? Like I know there's these processes in place and stuff for like, the sergeant at arms will, but like they've never had to do something like that before. So like no president has ever objected the results of an election for this late in the process. Like, it's just, everything's so and sure, we have these like set procedures and stuff of how this has happened, but like it's hard for me to imagine a sergeant at arms actually like removing a president from the White House.
It just seems like it's him at this point though. Now, now that it's come to this point where we are like, if something just absolutely insane was going to happen, it would have already happened. I think.
Yeah.
This could come back to haunt me, but I think we're beyond that at this point. But so most all the Republicans at this point have at least cut bait with how this has gone. So I would guess that he is just, a man in his castle at this point who is waiting for the inevitable. It just doesn't seem like there's any other option other than that. That is, I guess, I definitely understand like what could happen there, and I don't think Trump will allow himself to be embarrassed. That's why I think he will never allow that to happen. But moving forward beyond that, there are some very disturbing elements that are within America now, just full on and shown in full force, that are going to believe that this administration is 100% illegitimate, and what that means for the places that they locally vote in, or whether they continue to vote at all, or they take, I don't know, matters into their own hands, and whatever that means to them in their own ways. It's just some choppy waters appear to be ahead.
No, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about too, and this is something I've seen a lot of people saying on social media since this happened, and this is just more speaking to those people because frankly they're morons. It's the at least things weren't set on fire and stuff and police attacked and blah 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 blah. Well, first of all, police were attacked. Second of all,
hey, hashtag Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah, and yes, okay, what happened in the summer with the protests and the riots, with the destruction of property, and like nobody, I won't say nobody, but I think most people recognize that like you can't be burning stuff down to the ground. It's like, no, I don't think, at least none of us were saying like, yeah, you can just go burn down a building. However, like with that being said, that stuff being bad, that pales in comparison to storming and it's not just the U.S. Capitol building. Like, it's like, this is like the center of like democracy for the world. Like, this is like we are the country everybody looks at when it comes to, free, democratic nations and stuff. And so like, this was on display for the entire world to see. And like that, I think, is a far, far, far bigger deal and a far bigger issue and far more dangerous than buildings being burnt down or looting happening at Brooks Brothers, in downtown DC. Like sure, that stuff's bad. I think this is just so much worse. Like, to draw a comparison between the two it's just ignorant.
But to like add full context to it, they weren't just like invading the Capitol. They were doing it to basically threaten lawmakers to overthrow an election. Like, it wasn't just like it was some random Tuesday. Like, there was a reason why it was today, and there was a reason why they were going in there with zip ties and armed and trying to break into the chambers. Like,
they had to put cabinets and desks in front of the doors. Members of Congress, I guess, under all the seats, there are masks that they wanted them to put on so people couldn't identify them when they're being escorted out, and so specific people couldn't be targeted. They had gas masks out because there was tear gas in the in Statutory Hall, the big kind of rotunda area where every state has, there's 2 statues and whatnot. This wasn't a peaceful protest. Like, sure, things might not have been burning to the ground and shit. Like, they broke into the Capitol building, and there was a legitimate fear for the lives of the lawmakers that were in these chambers. Somebody else made a good point. I saw, I don't recall who, but they were like, what is like a Josh Hawley or a Ted Cruz? How are they ever going to be able to criticize the Putin regime again and criticize them on, free and fair elections? And, all Putin has to say is look what you guys did. Like, you guys are supposed to be this bastion of, democracy, and, you guys promoted these conspiracy theories for 2 months, and then people overtook your center of government. I don't know. It's
yeah, that is why you have a democracy, so that doesn't happen. It's supposed to be way before that point that people's grievances are addressed at that point. And then at the same time, you're supposed to not have people that will actively foment that, I don't know, undermining of democracy or whatnot you want to call it. So you're right. At that level, it does just look terrible, because we really haven't been able to wave the democracy wand too seriously for a while now. But this is just makes it look even worse that, our elections we have segments of the population that just believe what they want to believe, and they think this is an illegitimate election. And yeah, what that means going forward, tough to say.
But that speaks to why Josh Hawley was saying the last couple weeks, it's oh, we're here to give a voice to you. These votes are not going to get overturned. So why are you going to come back and object tonight? Hey, not giving any credence to what happened today, but
their voice has been heard.
Your voice has been fucking heard. Shut up, get it done. You guys know damn well, because it's just like what Kyle was saying. These morons that went into the Capitol today, believe this is going to get overturned. And senators are, virtue signaling to those people hey, we got your back, but they know nothing's going to get done. So now that you're playing with terrorism, and that's what it was today. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't rioting. This was terrorism. End it. Be done with it. There's no reason to continue this, because they know damn well that those votes aren't fraudulent. They know the process wasn't fraudulent. Shut up. Run in 4 years. Place 5th in Iowa because you're a loser senator from Missouri, and go on with your life.
Yeah. It's Trey Gowdy was on Fox a little bit ago, and I was listening to him, and color me shocked if I wasn't listening to Trey Gowdy and agreeing with him 100%. But he essentially made a similar point to you, where he was like, this was always a fool's errand. Like, this was never going to happen. And he's like, and Gowdy's point was, I think there are legitimate concerns and grievances with some of the things that happened in the election, which obviously we would disagree with, and we think that's not true. But to his point is, he was like, but this isn't the way you deal with that. You handle that in the courtroom. You had your chance to handle it in the courtroom. You went 1-62 in those petitions or whatever the hell they were called. And you can address these issues through the state legislative bodies by trying to change election laws and blah, blah, like, fine. Like, those are like, if you truly think there was something wrong with how this election played out, like, there are remedies to that. Like, if you actually believe this what happened today is not like that it's just simply it's never going to be a successful way for you to get the changes that you want, because now, I mean, they're totally delegitimized. And with that, like, what do you guys think this means for the Republican Party now? Because I imagine you're still going to have the the Marjorie Taylor Greens, or Green Taylor, whatever her name is, the newly incoming, the Madison Cawthorns, the Louis Gohmerts, the Ron John, like these people in the Republican Party that I think are still going to be in the Trump part of the party. But I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans now that are like, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, this is not, like, this is just a step too far, like, beyond, like, do you guys think this is just going to completely fracture the party into, into essentially two different wings of the Republican Party? Or, like, what do you guys think moving forward?
Well, I think Ron Johnson's going to lose his Senate seat in 2022, so I don't think we have to worry about him. But, yeah, we talked about this today. Like, even with these objections, like, at this point, you are just like being a deterrence to, governing, which isn't gonna like lose you any like love there by the extreme right. But like, I would, in an election that you were already losing like very moderate Republicans and independents, like, coming back after this and still inciting like these people I would think was going to lose you more people. And I think, like you were saying earlier today, Kyle, by just doing that, you're also running into problems where these people are going to get primaried by like radicals, like not just Tea Party radicals who, were radicals in their own way, but actually had a message. Like, the next 4 years, Republicans are going to get primaried by like people, and their only grief is going to say, you didn't support Donald Trump. And that's
scary.
What they're going to go up against.
Yep. I think, I think you're exactly right. I think that, I don't know. It's so, in a way, it's not like, in a way, I'm like, oh, this isn't surprising that this is where we've ended up with this administration. But at the same time, like, if you would have told me that people were going to storm the Capitol building and take control of the Capitol building for a period of hours, I would have been like, no, that'll never happen. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like,
but honestly, is it? I mean, like I said, they did this in Michigan this summer. Like, yes, it's just Michigan, but like,
still,
you go back into these, like, we were sharing or a scene from the newsroom today about being called surprised this is happening. Like, I mean, yes, it's shocking for sure, really shocking, but are you surprised it's happening? Like,
yeah.
Going back to what Bork says, with these sets of events, what was the logical conclusion?
I mean, personally, I would think that Capitol Hill police would stop them before it got to that point, but
yeah. Well, I was thinking about this.
I didn't think there was any way that would happen, but apparently not.
Well, I was thinking about that, and it never should have happened, because there should, like, I keep talking about Adam Kinzinger because I heard him talk several times today, but he said he's been warning people for weeks now that like things were going to get violent. Like, I think he's very in tune to like the radical wings of his party, and like I think he's very eyes open about that element of people within the Republican Party. And but I was thinking, I'm like, well, like with that in mind, like with this, knowing this protest was happening, there should have been an increased level of security already in place before things got out of hand. It's the fact that there wasn't, like, it totally makes sense how this happened, because I mean, 6 officers at, an entry point aren't going to stop, dozens or, hundreds of people walking in. Like, you just can't physically do it. But like, had the whether it be the National Guard or the DC police or the CAB, whatever it may be, had they been, prepared ahead of time, like they were during the Black Lives Matter protests in the summer, and were, shoulder to shoulder on the Capitol steps waiting for, anything bad to happen, yeah, this wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have. Why they weren't prepared that way for this, I think is a discussion all by itself. I think there's.
By the way, we'll have Bork going next, but that common picture that's been spread around the Lincoln Memorial of all of the Black Lives Matter, armed police. I was at the Lincoln Memorial, a building to where if you overtake, you're not like stopping the, fundamental workings of the American government. So the fact that there was that much armed police around the Lincoln Memorial, which a Black Lives Matter protest obviously has, pretty stark history, going to the steps where Martin Luther King gave his speech.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
the fact that it was that was that heavily armed for, a bunch of, black people is ridiculous to you then think like, hey, like, we didn't protect the, Capitol.
There was a much larger resistance put up against vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial, which is a national monument. Get it. But that was more heavily protected than the center of our government is. Like, what are we doing? Like, where are the priorities here? Like again, you don't want things to happen to either one of them, but like, if you gotta pick one to protect, like, it's gotta be the Capitol building. Like, after the White House, it's probably the place that is, for a federal place, is a building. Like, you just have to, like, you can't let this happen. Borg, what do you think? Just what do you think what happened today, what this means for the Republican Party moving forward? Like, is this going to change what happens with the candidate? Is this going to embolden like the more extreme wings of the party heading into 2024, or is this going to kind of make them have a shift kind of back to a little bit, a Republican Party a little bit more recognizable?
I would guess that depending on what the census looks like, because that could always change different things and whatnot. But I would guess that the continuing trend of the suburbs moving in the Democratic direction accelerates even more at this point. Because I just don't. Unless if Republicans in those districts want to remain in their seats, they just need to switch party. Because there's just no way that those people can tolerate a party that's going to more or less collaborate with that element of America anymore. I don't think, at least. So I would guess in the areas that like can pretty much rely on, it doesn't matter like what Republican, if they just vote Republican, I'm going to guess that they're just going to stay that way. But any sort of competitive suburb related district just is going to go Democratic every time now, unless No, I'm not even going to say it unless. That's just how I would imagine it would go, because the Republican Party is just too wedded to like it, and it's a major problem because electorally they're wedded to Trump's base or whatnot. The only problem is the things that it takes to get that base turned out turns off a lot of the other voters that they need that would vote with them on, like, tax issues and whatnot, like the suburb voters. And so Democrats, I think, are more than willing to scoop in and get those people up. So I would think that the Democratic Party will end up moving to the right, but that is yet to be seen at this point.
Now, don't freak out, okay, Bork, but essentially what you just said is essentially, what Rick Santorum said last night about the Republican Party. and I agree with both of you. Like, Rick, he essentially said the same thing of, like, the Republican Party has a very very small needle to thread with, Trump did turn out a lot of conservative voters that felt disenfranchised by previous Republican administrations, and he got those people to come out and vote. So moving forward, how does whoever the hell it might be, how do they retain that base and keep them engaged while also winning back these moderate voters that Trump has, seemingly turned off from the Republican Party? Like, right. I personally, I don't think I don't think there's going to be anybody that's able to do both of those things. Like, I just don't see how unless the Democratic Party just goes batshit crazy, which, I'm sure some people will be like, well, they already are, but like, no, like, actually, like, legitimate, like, super, super far left. Like, I'm not talking like Bernie, I'm talking like crazy, crazy far left. Like, I just don't see that being a thing that a Republican's able to kind of thread that needle. But I don't know. We saw what happened in Georgia, and it'll take some time, obviously, a few elections, to see if this is like actually a shift towards more liberal Georgia, or if this is just kind of an anti-Trump thing that's happened. But I think it's probably a safe bet that, yeah, Georgia is becoming more liberal, and I don't think Texas is very far behind. Texas is getting a huge influx of people from California because Texas is very business friendly. Austin, Texas is becoming Silicon Valley 2.0. So there's just tons of liberal voters moving into the state of Texas. So I think that's just a matter of time before, it was close on election night for a while, and it was, surprisingly close. And so I think that's just a trend that's going to continue. But
yeah, I think things are going to get really weird electorally at some point. I think just based on how things are going and how things seem to be spinning, you would have to think that a legitimate additional party is going to have to emerge at some point.
Yeah,
that's somehow able to, I don't know, like, no idea what their platform would look like or anything like now, but like, just, and again, maybe the Democrats aren't able to deliver on a good like a sufficient level of agenda from now till 2022, and there's some big wipeout, and then we have gridlock again, and this doesn't come to fruition. But assuming that at least a fraction of what Biden wants to pass, which he definitely can pass a lot of things now that the Senate is no longer in play, and I would say that over delivering on some of the promises only helps the people that are in the quote unquote middle vulnerable districts. So it's the sky is the limit for them again. That's like if the Democratic Party, just based on what their stated goals and agenda are, is always in the position to come out very favorably electorally, especially now that the Republicans have done what they've done and have gone all in on just more or less the cultural issues to generate their voters. So I mean, it'll be really interesting to see, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's man, what a day. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens over the next few. I mean, obviously this won't happen again. Like if the DC police, that whole apparatus of all the different agencies that are, take a part in, protecting places like this, like if they were caught off guard today, like it's not going to happen again. But I don't think these protests are just going to go home. Like I think there's going to be protests over the next few days still. And, but just, I mean, I saw something today. One of you guys might have shared this, I think, maybe. I'm not sure. There's just been so many things on social media since this all happened that something to the effect of like, in the entire 5-year period of the Civil War, the Confederate flag never was flown in the halls of the Capitol building. And then it was a picture of somebody walking through the Capitol building with a Confederate flag today. Like it's like stuff like that. That's like, man, like obviously this is a big deal, but it's like stuff like that where I'm like, man, this is like unprecedented, like absolutely.
quite the imagery.
Yeah. Like insane. So yeah, I mean, we're sitting here, the joint session of Congress they're back on the Senate floor debating right now. The, what's his name? Who's the guy? Sherrod Brown is just going crazy right now.
Bennett, Senator Bennett.
Oh, it's Bennett. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to see what the reaction to Trump is here over the next few days from Republicans. And I'm sure we'll revisit some of this stuff probably this weekend, hopefully. And, but yeah, I will, after we wrap this up, after like our closing little snippet thing there, I'll have a little clip from the newsroom on the back end of this episode for everybody to watch. That's, I think, applicable to what happened today. So make sure everybody there watching, like, follow, share, subscribe, Moose Club Pod, and then look for us on Spotify as well. We will. This was supposed to be an episode about the Georgia Senate runoff elections, but obviously with what happened today, we had to kind of switch gears. So, but we will have, we're going to record another episode on that. We'll have that out probably maybe a day or two after this one's published. So everybody be on the lookout for that. But yeah, definitely, I don't know, weird day for sure. Crazy. So like, follow, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. So yep. Thanks for watching.